back to Madam Across New Horizons. I'm there, darling. I shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today. Late night episode, mainly because we had a D&D session restarting again today, and I actually think it went pretty well, pretty well received. It was very relaxed, it was very casual. It did have like some nice story beats, and I think like at least behind the scenes it was modular, and I felt I could actually control a lot of what was going on. But yeah, I mean, I can talk for it because it was something which I didn't really find much reference for about this particular concept. But good evening, everyone, here with a late night broadcast. I hope I can make it through this. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 1:33 AM on Friday, January 16th, 2026, or what it should be. But yeah, my overall goal for this session was definitely always to do something not combat related, and there was a few different avenues I was exploring, and I was like, maybe I should do it quite puzzly, and I was like, puzzlies can be kind of like hit or miss. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what I want to do. And I was like, maybe we can do it like kind of lore based, and I was like, it feels kind of bad to make them go through like lore which is based on their own individual campaigns in a group campaign, because it like doesn't make sense. Like the other group doesn't have any context for it whatsoever. So I was like, okay, well we can make it kind of sandboxy, and I was like, but then also there's a worry. I was like, if I make it too sandboxy and just like they just throw them into a room basically and be like, all right, 3 hours, there you go. It's like, well, what's the point of a D&D at that point? We might as well just hang out as friends, or like and it also will feel a bit aimless. It'd be nice to have like a sort of goal to push them forward, which I can sort of stick them to. But of course I want them to be able to be sandboxy as well, because like they probably could spend a lot of time just like speaking, talking for ages. But I'm like, it would be nice to have it in like a sort of like very modular fashion, which allows me to sort of basically control like exactly the pace that some certain parts go, gives nice sort of breaks, natural breaks, or like ways I can even, if I have to it, basically cut it off early and be like, this part come in later. So I actually came up with quite a nice solution, I think, which actually ended up solving quite a lot of different issues at once, which was basically a modular dungeon which basically has no effect on the outside world. Basically it's a dungeon which takes place in a dreamscape, and what it basically is, the ultimate goal is every player character has an individual like lore wheel, which they need to go in and resolve basically a lore based point. And initially my idea was like it was going to be like each one had like an individual puzzle to go in, and I was like, no, let's make it simpler. This is like, the focus is we sandboxing, just like talking to each other, having a good time, vibing, and then if they want like this plot to move along, we need a simple plot, simple lore, simple puzzles to keep things going. And it was basically just exactly that, like that's a long and short. And the thing that I really loved about the solution, which I felt was very difficult from the first time, is that in the first session that they had grouped together, is that each party didn't know the other party particularly well, and it was only one session long, so they didn't have much incentive to be like, okay, this is my backstory, this is who I am, right? But they got only a very brief introduction, and most of it was combat, which made it even harder to get that across. So this, at least the way I did it, looked to also resolve that by basically giving the other party like a very quick introduction to this character's like backstory and struggles, without being like, obviously you're not going to have like too much of a development, and nothing which has a permanent effect on the character arc, but enough that you can see, what the heck, you're just chilling, you're just walking about. Oh yeah, very polite resetting now, sorry, hold on, this is a 3.0 update thing. Hello, my name's Resetting. I'm here to greet all the island residents and inform them of our terrific reset service. Don't clods, that ain't how I talk, let me give it to you straight. I'm gonna start over. Needless to say, that's clear, ain't it? And you're not phone, you got to be out for the rescue services, right? Yeah, that's me on the rescue mole. Ain't gonna lie, it's a tough gig, but I figured I'd start another job. Don't worry, I've hired the paperwork. It's a reset service I mentioned earlier. It's called the reset service. The name says, oh yeah. Now anyone who knows me resets, and I have a little history and get just riled up at the word. But the game has changed, and it's long past I buried a pickaxe. Old pickaxe, so here we are. Okay, I see you're wondering what this episode's about, let me tell you. You ever find yourself looking at your island thinking, what a dump, wishing you could just hit reset? Sure you do. That's where I come in, reset it all in a blink of a mole's eye. That's about it. So, you want I should give you the nitty gritty, yeah? What? If you want, I could give you the nitty gritty, yeah? I don't know what that means. Sure, let's hear it. Here we go. There's a lot to get through, so no, not enough. What can I reset? Let's start with, I don't know what I said. I can reset decorative things like furniture, fencing, ladders and stuff. Also things placed on the ground. Stuff buried in the ground like trees, bushes, veggies and weeds. Ain't touching that. Can't do it. Nothing. Stuff I clean up will go to your home storage, so be sure you got room. Want to hear more? Sure. Let's see, what's next? Oh yeah, let me tell you where I can reset. Go tackle the entire island in one go. You can also focus on specific spots like beaches or areas you choose. It's your core boss. By the way, when I say beaches, I mean the sandy and rocky bits next to the ocean, capiche? Oh yeah, shells and other thing that wash up. Don't touch them. They ain't like you put them there, right? You want me to keep going? Okay, sure. How many things are there? Earthworms. Haven't told you about how much it's going to cost yet. The daily fee is 60,000 bells. That may sound a bit high, but it covers the whole day of resetting, as many times as you want. Any part of the island as many times as you want. You call and I'm there. It's like an all you can reset buffet. And that ain't all. Got a special deal for you users. You're gonna love this. First time users, it's free. Got a bit more to explain. Want to hear it? Sure. As an optional service, I can reset planted flowers and custom designs placed on the ground. Oh, and you can choose to toss out the flowers instead of putting them in storage. One more thing, I also do some pest control while I'm resetting. So if your house is infested with creepy crawlies, well, it won't be when I'm done. So let's see, fella, took a while but that covers it. Oh, one more thing, if you ever need a reset, give Isabella over her resident services a call. She'll put it in the order, and I'll come and tell her reset service available whenever you need it. Hold up a sec, I ain't working during festivals and whatnot, that's given. Anyway, be sure to give reset service a try. You ready to start resetting? Now I'll pass. What's that? You ain't interested? I'm not, but I fully enjoy that. It is a service which exists. Sorry, back to D&D. But yes. So basically what it is every single player character got their own world, and I justified it with in-law reasons, but in-law reasons don't really matter essentially. But basically each of these worlds was constructed from their memory, and this is a thing which they kind of got across, but maybe not so explicitly. Each of these worlds was basically a what-if scenario. The what-if being like, what if the most important thing which happened, which defined your backstory, didn't happen the way it exactly happened. And I think it did an amazing double duty, because one, it showed off exactly what challenges, I suppose, character faced, like what things interest them, what things mean stuff or match to them. Then it also shows off their backstory in an inverted way, without it being so heavily depressing. It shows off like in a particularly good light, which is a great introduction for the other characters to understand what's going on. And what they basically had to do is, because it was initialized basically off false memories, they basically had to go in and they basically had to tell the memory it's fake, and then the memory go, are you sure? And then they'll have to be like, yes, in one way or another. How they do it is up to them, but they basically have to break the illusion of what it is, and then it resets everything back to zero and gives them control over it. And the reason I did it like that is because it gives a fantastic lore reason for them to go in, because it's obviously going to be like a really nice variation of like some very sad memories, or a nice variation of something which could happen in the future, and gives them a really nice lore reason to be there, engage with it for a bit, but understand that we still have something that we need to do, so we reset everything, essentially. And then at the end, spoiler alert, this is basically the equivalent of housing, which I gave them, because I didn't want to give them permanent housing stay in the D&D campaigns, mainly because they move about so much. It would be kind of lame to be like, oh, you have a house in this kingdom, but now for this character arc we need to go to over here. So I basically gave them like a dream house, literally. It's a house that they can only access when they're resting, short resting or long resting, because while it doesn't take place in the dream realm, you have to be like dreaming, I suppose, kind of to get there. So think of dreaming as a passageway, but the location itself is just in a pocket dimension, which gives it a place where it's like, okay, you can basically have a house wherever you want now, and it gives now there's possibilities that it can open up and expand in the future or whatever. It makes it so it's just not exploitable. It really is meant to just be like a side sort of custom place where it's like they can call this their base, their home. Because a couple of them have like their own little mini subspaces, but one you can't rest in that place like at all, and they don't have control of it, and the other one is they can't stay there for very long, and they also don't have control over it. So those ones have a bit more functions, I think, in mechanical purposes. This one has less functions mechanically, but it's more so for like story, lore to build it up. And I didn't initially wasn't going to give a present, I think, for the joint session, like a gift or like a reward or a boon, but I was like, this will be a nice one because this is something which is not currently present in the D&D session. Like, obviously we're writing the story together, but this one gives like a very high level, a very fine level of granularity of control of customization in there, which they can fully control, which I think is really cool. To some people that matters more, to some people they probably don't care in the slightest, and it's something which is like tangential, so it doesn't have to be relevant, but it makes for great lore opportunities or great like story roleplay moments where it's like, oh, we're taking a short rest or something, you know. I'll probably take a short rest or something in the house or something and work on, I don't know, something XYZ thing. It's really, really fun that way. So yeah, it ticks a lot of boxes. Like I spent a lot of time thinking about it, like crafting it, trying to make it work. It's also very modular, so if at any point I had to like stop a session being like we're running on too long or something, then it's fine. Like they don't need both parties out all the time to do it. They can instead, you know, take it separately in their own campaigns. It allows me to sort of break things up naturally, because it does sort of spotlight a character, but it spotlights them for only a few minutes, because they get spotlighted, they do their thing, and then they reset the memory room, essentially, which doesn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes probably, so the spotlight isn't for too long, and the other characters can sort of learn about it as well. But if I wanted to make it more of a shared spotlight, I absolutely could. That's why it's nice and modular. It's like each room I can sort of control the pacing on, because I can much more distinctly say, like, this is the start, this is the end, this is how long it takes. So if I wanted the others to get more involved, then yeah, I'd extend it out a little bit longer, focus with them, interacting with the other parts of a memory which aren't necessarily the strongest focus. If the parts are like, if it's like, as some of them are like, it's getting like, we're running out of time and that sort of thing, and you know, we're just sort of like going through emotions a bit more, it's like, nope, we're solely focusing on the spotlight character, that's it, and then we'll just move on. So it had like a really nice level of modularity to it. I also had like an NPC in there who basically very clearly explained off the beginning, because she already studied it, she had the same thing happen, she knows what's going on, and she wants to study it more, essentially. So it was very clearly laid out at the beginning, being like, oh yeah, this is what's going on. The only thing it suffers from slightly is like the puzzle is not much of a puzzle. Like there's some things where it's like there's 8 different doors, which I described, which I thought in a very fun way will give like a sort of level of customization, and then make it relevant to that character, which we had to figure out which one's theirs. It's very easy, and then of course it's not much of a puzzle. Originally, as I said, I was going to do a puzzle where they'd have to figure out, because basically what they're doing when they tell the memory it isn't real and they confirm it, it basically gives them the key to the dream house door, basically, or their dream house door. But originally I was going to have like a different riddle, a different puzzle that they'd each have to do, like a big like sort of roleplay thing, that they'd have to do to be able to get the key. Like one character would have to speak to one specific character, one character would have to do this specific thing for this character or something like that. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, that has a danger of like really spotlighting a character for too long. I need something which I need to be able to just sort of wrap up in like 5 minutes or something if I need to. So I really streamlined it down and made sure that basically it was basically a side thing to the main part, which is them talking, them having a roleplay. And as it happens, like they spent like the first hour or so basically just getting into it in the first place, like entering the first door and speaking with the first character and just messing around, sort of talking with each other, which I fully expected. And then it was like the later ones like took a bit longer to get through, but we did get through them all. Like, it was a 4-hour-ish session, I think. Yeah, more or less. So I think it was like the first hour before they even got into the door or something properly, and then it was like the second hour is like when we actually started going through. At the end of the second hour, I think we started going through memories. I can't quite recall actually off the top of my head anymore. Or maybe they like did the first 2 memories, and then we did the next 4 memories, and then we did the last 2 memories at the end. Something like that. I can't remember the exact time distribution, but it gave it a lot of finesse and control, and it's really nice. And my players even said at the end, it was nice because you basically see the character stories. Like I'll use my DMPC's character story to be able, because they don't know who the DMPC is, and I don't want to give away the other player character story. But she's basically like, when she was younger, she was a twin. She lost that twin, essentially. Like that twin sister died when she was younger, and then she created this automaton robot, which is basically I won't go too far into the details, but is effectively for a sort of like replacement in a way, or like a revival of her. And then she basically had the memory, and it took her back to a time, an alternate time, being like, what if that character never died, essentially. Yeah, so she got in, and she was very explicit about it, because she was like, I think I know what's going to be behind this door. She walked in, she was like, that's my mentor, Icarus, and that there. And then she trailed off, and then the action said more than the words could say. She goes and just gives a really big hug. And then she very explicitly, like after she's like there, she revels in the moment, just like cherishes it, and then says, this isn't real, and I'm sorry, but this has to end. And then she takes a key and she leaves. Over and done. Less than 5 minutes, I think, that one. But basically gets a point across, because now you can look at his character and you don't know exactly what the story is happening is, but she lost her sister. I did some descriptive things which makes it very clear that they looked like they were twins, and it looked like something which was related to her backstory of like how she became like an artificer in the first place. So very neatly wrapping everything up. But there were like the initial plan was that each of these was like, this is a different alternate reality, which I think some of them got across better than others, because some of them were like future realities which hadn't happened. Like 3 of them were future realities which hadn't necessarily happened yet, like the triggering event hasn't happened. Like one, I'll try and keep it vague, but like one of them was like, what if in future comes back, finishes and completes his journey, and everyone loves him, essentially. Second one is like, what if, this one was a bit harder because it's really hard to communicate that in like such a short time, and because they're not focused on that, so I basically was like, okay, don't even think about it. But I might say it for my players if they're watching. The first one I was saying was the barbarian. Was like, what if he came back from his pilgrimage and like everyone loved him, like, and then it was just like everything just like worked out and he was made like the tribe leader, like it all just basically went swimmingly. The second one is for our monk character. It was basically like, what would happen if he didn't go out on this journey to basically find the other parts of him, find out who he basically truly was, in a sense, and he just stayed with his new adopted life. That would be like a possible future. The third one, which was also more about a future, was about the paladin rogue character, who is, it's a bit more ambiguous for, because the other campaign's missing a lot more of the context, but we can get some of the context. But this is like her mentor, her master, was there, and the theoretical alternate reality was like, what if they did just continue travelling, because she hasn't been travelling basically with him for the past 2 years, and he's actually gone missing, or like not been in contact for quite a long time. And that's why it's like, what if they stuck it through? And I tried to drop it subtly through a dialogue, but she was already made a knight in that round. That she was made a knight and everything was good, everything was something, and that they saw each other as equals rather than, you know, like a was it like a knight and a serf, essentially. But that one, like, it didn't come across as well, because it was quite hard to sort of slot in being like, oh yeah, this is the future. That first one with Barbarian, I was like, this is him back from a pilgrimage, so I kind of got in there. The second one, it was a lot harder. I forgot what I was going to say. It was like, I was meant to describe some of them as like, the characters look older than you remember. And then I had my DMPC character, the Artificer, which was basically alternate reality. What if they didn't die, essentially? What if the mentor and the twin sister didn't die back then? What would the reality look like then? And I think all the others were kind of like in the past as well, basically what ifs. Like the cleric character is like, what if her family survived, or what if, you know, that bad stuff didn't happen, her family was still alive to that day. That one was my bad. I forgot to describe that. I was meant to say that the family looked older, like they aged up with her, essentially. But to be fair, it was a couple years ago, I believe, so like maybe that difference isn't as notable. And to be fair, that player character was fully role-playing at that point, and I was like, I'm not going to interrupt you at all. Once you find yourself starting to run out of how you're going to continue on, that's when I'll step in. So that one I actually quite minimalistly didn't do much, because by that point it was like a sick one or something, and it was very obvious that she knew. She was like, oh yeah, I know what's going to happen, like at this point. So just fully prepared and ready for it. Then we had the 2 warlock characters. One of the warlock characters, I'd say Paul Warlock, that was a bit harder because he's an amnesiac essentially. So I was just like, I could do something based off his original story, which is totally okay because he has like fragments of a memory, but also it's not really very well defined because like I don't know like anything about his story, and I'm like I don't want to like forcibly like make it up or anything. So I instead did like alternate reality of one thing which he said very early on actually in the journey when he was like level 3 or something. It's like maybe one day we'll just retire, that's it, we'll just buy a house in the countryside and it'll just be us two, basically him raising his kind of like adoptive daughter. And that was basically reality being like they stopped adventuring, they did that instead. So you know that's why she looked younger, because she didn't evolve, because she didn't gain XP, and she was also here in the physical realm. She didn't sacrifice herself basically to save her father's life. Sacrifice, quote quote, basically getting rid of her physical self. That was that one. And then the short warlock character had another one where it was just like, what if the original family he was raised with accepted him essentially, and he ended up being like the most important, because that was the thing. It's like he was seen as a bit of like a failure, a bit of like a jinx, shall we say, if you've seen Arcane, within that operations. But no, it's like, no, what if actually he was like super amazing and super beloved and that sort of thing. And that's very similar I think to another character, the bard character, who basically like, what if her parents supported what she was doing and who she was. And then there she is playing on a grand stage with her parents like front row seats supporting her. So a lot of those are very like, some of those are sort of like a sad one because they get to reunite with someone they lost essentially. Like, so let's see, 3 future ones of basic, 2 of them are basically being awesome, one of them being a bit more melancholic, sort of like a reunion. 2 of them are being like sad ones of being able to reunite with someone they lost, and one of them being like an alternate reality where things could be simpler, and then 2 of them being like alternate realities where they were given the support they needed essentially. And it gave just beautiful roleplay moments where each character's like, they come in, they embrace it for a moment, and then but they know in their hearts it's not real, despite the fact that how nice, how lovely, how amazing it is. They break the illusion and they take the key and they get to have that emotional moment, and it's like, oh yes. I liked it a lot. I don't know if it resonated with every player. That's just how the name of the game, because I have 7 different players here. I cannot appease all of them every single time exactly what they want, but I think it gave enough, because I said very explicitly, you can be very silly. It doesn't have an effect on the real world here, because that's what it was, a bit more tenuous I suppose in the first time we did it. So they got to be like really silly at the beginning, and then like the last half was like, okay, it's a bit more serious, like lore stuff, but you can still be a little bit silly, you know. When it's not your turn to be spotlighted, you're afforded a bit more like comic relief, I suppose. So yeah, it was pretty cool. It's a really nice idea. I don't think it will work for everybody, or will it work every time, and it honestly takes a lot of effort because I had to prep so much stuff. I had to basically, I spent so long basically thinking about like what part made sense for them to sort of like change. Like some of them were easy, like the bard character was super easy, like obviously that's what I was going to do for an alternate reality. But for them, for the tour war, like I was like going back and forth for ages being like, what makes sense? Like, do I have to do something really far in the past? I'm like, it's not really well defined, and this character doesn't even remember it in the slightest. This one, at least the character can have like a notable effect on and take forward. And then some other ones, like the rogue paladin was also quite difficult as well, is because like a lot of the earlier stuff I don't know if we should necessarily delve into, because it's also quite unknown, it's also a little bit murky, and it's also going to be difficult to bring forward. But this one at least gives a very nice sort of thing for something that she can take forward, I suppose, into the actual campaign itself. Mainly because they hadn't seen the master, only heard him by name, and no one else seemed to really have known him. So there you go, now they've seen him. So it gives a lot of really nice, it's surprisingly amazing, I think, as a solution. The only thing it loses out on is there's no combat, but you could easily put combat in this if you wanted to adapt to it yourself. Just turn one of the rooms into a combat room for whichever character makes the most sense for. That's how I see it. Or just have a big combat at the end or something of like the memories, you know. You can make with dimensional space like fight back or something, or resist, I don't know, but I didn't want to do that because I was like, let's keep it simple. And it was also meant to be like a sort of warm-up, you know, to get people back into sort of motions of role-playing D&D, and I think it kind of worked. So there we go. I gushed about for like 25 minutes, but that's because I had a Rossetti talk in the middle. I think it, like, I'm very happy with how it went. Was it perfect? No, I don't think it was perfect. There's some things I probably would do a little bit differently, because eight of those was quite a lot necessarily. I think it probably would have worked better so for four like separately in each individual campaign, but then it loses the point of it being able to be like this is like what this character's lore is 101. So ideally probably I would have done it on the weekend and not like ended up at like 11 something PM, but so be it. I'm still pretty happy with the design elements of it, so success in my mind. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to round this episode up here, so if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see you again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.